Scaz, as I watched the Celtics beat the Wolves and improve their record to 14-3, good for second in the Eastern Conference, which we'll talk about whether conferences will matter coming soon. We'll talk about the Cavs, but I said this to you about 30 seconds before I hit record, and I'm like, oh, I should have hit record. I'm not sure Anthony Edwards knows how to actually play basketball. And you're going to be like, oh, what do you mean? He had, let me look at the box score here. He had 28 points and he had 7 assists and he had 9 rebounds and he was a +2 on the box score. How can you say he doesn't know how to play basketball? And Scaz, your reaction to Anthony Edwards was?
Well, I said there's a reason they're 8-8 right now. The fit in Minnesota, there's some problems with the fit, I think.
Thank you. I'm not sure he actually knows how to play basketball. Like, I'm sure that he knows how to run around the gymnasium with a basketball, but I'm not sure he actually knows how to play and think through the game. And this is year 4 in the NBA. We'll say it's year 4 because it makes my point better. But year 4 in the NBA, you should be able to understand defenses and read defenses. And I went through this twice, Scaz. Like I'm Santa. I go through my list and then I check it twice. But I went through all of his shot attempts. There's like no movement. There's like no movement on these shot attempts. And most of these assists are like empty assists. And here's the key point. This is what angers me most. And I was guilty of this because I was like, oh, Anthony Edwards got hot. And I kind of watched enough of it where I was like, you're right, Maz, you're right. But on that final play, Minnesota inbounds the ball with 7 seconds left. Edwards takes it with his left hand, and Jaylen Brown is just letting him go left to the point where Edwards probably thinks he's going to get fouled, but there's got to be a left-handed layup there somewhere. He doesn't even try. His play is to get it to the corner, which he had tried earlier, like late in the third quarter. Edwards had a similar dribble path and with his left hand, and Tatum intercepted the shovel pass. And Edwards tried to do that. He didn't even try to make a left-handed layup. I think when I went back and looked at all of his shots, I think he only had one left-handed make and one left-handed attempt out of his 21 shot attempts. But, like, I just look at how he played today, and I'm like, does he know how to play the game? Or, if I really want to go all green team honkish, the Celtics have him on lockdown, and he can't read the Celtics defense. But what a game, Scaz. What a game. What a game for the Celtics. And I think that Jaylen Brown, you're going to look at his offensive numbers, and you'll be like, oh, he was amazing in the first quarter, second half. But the key to this was the defense. And don't let the box score fool you that he was a -1. Jaylen Brown forced Anthony Edwards to his left hand and fronted him so well defensively that he couldn't even get a layup off. And you could see there was a play earlier in the fourth quarter where Edwards had the ball, got switched into a Jaylen Brown, and he was angry in real time that he got switched into Jaylen Brown. Because Anthony Edwards knows he can't bully Jaylen Brown. Scaz, your thoughts now that I've taken up the first 5 minutes.
No, Jay Stu, I love it, and I love Anthony Edwards, but I totally get where you're coming from. There are times where the Wolves' offense, it feels like the Wolves don't know what they want to do. I think Julius Randle, the insertion of Julius Randle, has a lot to do with that. He's a guy where the ball kind of sticks. He'll dribble to nowhere. He's not exactly going to rack up the assists all the time. He can be kind of a black hole at times, but I think the Timberwolves are a good team. You saw them go on runs today. But I love that you pointed out the Celtics defense, because this is something that, going back to Friday night, Joe Mazzulla mentioned this multiple times in his post-game press conference with Abby and then afterwards with the entire media. But 25-point quarters is something that I've heard Mazzulla mention more in the last week than in any week I can remember prior. So it seems they're really emphasizing team defense, especially lately. And 25-point quarters, that's the mark. That's what they're looking for. If they can hold a team to 25 points or less, that's their goal. And they did it twice tonight, and they did it, I believe 2 or 3 times on Friday night. So the defense, we said it last week. The defense is going to be what carries this team. The offense is going to be the offense. They're going to shoot threes. So I was, even with, Gobert eating them up, and I know we're going to get into the Cavs game in a little bit, their struggles with bigs recently, I thought they had a very good game plan today, how to attack Gobert and then not attack Gobert at times. So yeah, team defense for me was the number one takeaway.
So the Gobert thing, and Drew Carter all day was like, Gobert's got 20, he's just updating us on the rebound totals. And Scal's being like, they need to shoot more in the paint. Scal, have you watched I almost said a bad word there. Have you watched the team, Scal? Have you watched the bleeping team? That's not what they do. They can do it. But the idea is they want to get to Joe Mazzulla said 2 years ago, the most important stat in the NBA is 3-point attempts, 3-point field goal attempts. Do you know who used to yell and scream about the most important stat in the NBA was 2-point field goal attempts, Scaz? Do you know who used to yell and scream about that?
I do not.
He used to yell run. He's got an issue with every official, whoever calls everything against the Celtics.
That would be one
Tommy
Heinsohn.
NBA two-time Hall of Famer Tommy Heinsohn has an award named after him. Has his number retired behind Scalabrine when he's on the desk. That's the guy who used to yell and scream about 2-point field goal attempts being the most important. Now it's 3-point field goal attempts because the math is different now in the NBA. And so I don't worry about the rebounds because Gobert's down there to get rebounds. The Celtics, after they let the shot loose, they wait. Oh, it's a miss. Get the F back, because that's going to set up your defense quicker, and it allows them to be a better defensive team. Scal should know this. And yes, I am attacking Scal's commentary. In case anybody was wondering, yes, this is an attack on Scal's commentary because he's not paying attention to what the Celtics do and what their philosophy is. And it's just frustrating. Like, do you watch, or are you just trying to I won't do the Murray bit, but are you just trying to crack up the other guy, or just be like, oh, well, this is how I would have done it? Like, no, adapt to what the team, Mazzulla is telling you that they're going to shoot threes. If you disagree with it, say that you disagree with it. But understand that the Celtics are a 3-point shooting team. Most of the NBA is. So that's why the rebound thing with Gobert doesn't bother me. Now, when Gobert is matched up with Tatum or Brown or Derek White, when you get a switch, then I worry about Gobert. Jaylen Brown hit a 27-foot, way step back 3 on Gobert. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Or was that the one he missed? There was one where I went, oh, no, because Gobert was defending Jaylen Brown. I don't remember if he hit it or he missed it. But it's like, no, you want to pass out of that.
Kudos to Jaylen. He was 7 of 10 from beyond the arc today. So his best day from beyond the arc all season. And it was good to see Tatum bounce back as well. He's 0 for 10 on Friday from beyond the arc, and he was 5 of 12 today. So obviously you want to see him shoot a little bit better than that. But after an 0 for 10 game, you'll take that every time. And he went 0 for 10 and they won. That's why the Celtics are the Celtics right now, and they're the best team in the league, because Planet player Jason Tatum can go 0 for 10 and they'll grind out a win somehow.
Number 2 in the MVP, according to Basketball Reference. Would be number 1, but they have Jokic in italics right now on Basketball Reference for the MVP tracker. But right now, if there's no Jokic, it's Jason Tatum. And by the way, just one quick side note on Jokic, because I saw this the other night. Jokic almost hit a 3/4 court shot with 0.3 on the clock. I don't know if you saw this, Scaz. But he gets the inbound and does a volleyball fist, and it almost goes in from almost full court, probably about a good 90 feet. Maybe it was 98.5 feet.
There you go. But yeah, we talked about the MVP thing with Jokic, and we said Tatum's best shot, unfortunately for him, is Jokic missing some time. And that's exactly what happened over the last week. And Tatum still sitting at number 2 right now. But you could say he's closed the gap a little bit.
And the thing with Tatum, and I mentioned this, is his numbers, not including today's game because it's not updated yet, but 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. What did I say? 30. I think I said 37-7 or 38-7, something, or 38-8. I can go back and check it. I don't want to. I'd just rather speculate on what I actually said. So, it was a good game, though. Good game. Good game for the Celtics. Good game for the Celtics, especially with the fact that the Wolves, I think, were the number one 3-point defensive team in the league. They had given up the fewest makes in the NBA in 3-pointers. So it's a good win for the Celtics. Good, strong win for the Celtics.
I wanted to ask you because 5 straight wins. Do you think there's no chance Al Horford's playing tomorrow night, right? He rested Friday. He's probably going to rest tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I would think so. And the Clippers where are the Clippers in the standings? They're 10-7. Where are the Clippers coming from? Tyronn Lue, Lawrence Frank. Where are the Clippers coming from? They are in progress right now at Philadelphia. So, and yeah, I would probably sit Tatum. Sit Horford. Because what? Kawhi Leonard's not playing. And that'd be my guess.
Did you think anything of it when Horford was ruled out Friday night with an illness? Do you think that was maintenance at all, or do you think he was legitimately, an illness? Not that we're going to call into question the injury report.
Oh, I would all the time. I would say he had. I would say he had 2 shots and was like, you know what? I'm not going to play. And I'm joking. Of course, I think it was a maintenance day.
Yeah, and I hope they're doing stuff like that. Honestly.
Oh, I agree. Get Horford plastered so that he can't show up to play because he needs the night off. Do I think? No, I'm obviously joking. He's not hungover from visiting the White House, but yeah, it should have been a maintenance day for Al Horford. Tomorrow should be a maintenance day for Al Horford. Even though here's where they might play him back to back is they have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and then they're in Chicago. They're probably traveling Friday to Chicago. So you've got really 3 days off in between games.
All right, so we just did a little on the Minnesota game. One thing that I noticed in the Minnesota game, and I know it's a Tatum trend that happens at times. Sometimes he starts great, but he gets in this rhythm where he's a slow starter in these games, and he looks. I don't want to say he looks disengaged, but it takes him a little bit to get going in some of these games. Do you have any concerns, or did you notice it at all today?
So I've noticed it for a lot of Tatum's career that he can get out to a slow start. And I'd have to look at like the details and the schematics of each individual slow start. And I say that because Tatum's favorite player was Kobe, right?
Well, the only other crazy thing I was going to say is he there was a period where he was scoring the most first quarter points in the league, he might even still, but it just feels like the way he gets himself involved in the game, it takes a little bit of time, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So when Kobe got older and he got more experience, and of course, like somebody will go back and do the numbers and be like, "Oh, you're wrong. Like it's the most first quarter points in the history of any player in the league." It's like, well, I think that it's a rhythm. It's what the scripted offense is. There might be a game like, today Jalen came out hot, so want to keep going to Jalen, right?
And
But you have to make it naturally go to Jalen, right? But if Tatum comes from the Kobe Bryant philosophy, the Kobe Bryant philosophy is, I'll get mine. Don't you worry. I will get mine. But I want to make the players around me, I want them to build confidence. I want to be able to be like, okay, Derek White needs the ball now so that he'll be better in the later part of the game. Or Holiday. Holiday's got to start hitting those corner threes because I guess last year he was 60%. This year he's under 40. So there are things like that could be part of their like opening 5-minute script, quote unquote, that they might be working on within the flow of like, okay, we know that we have 10 plays we want to get because Holiday needs more shots in the corners because he's going to start making them, and that's going to make us better long term. So I kind of need to know a little bit more than what I'm thinking off the top of my head.
No, but you mentioned something great in there, and I'm glad you did. It was like him getting these guys in rhythm so they're more comfortable as the game goes on. Whether that's true or not, I think there is some validity to it because you look at a guy like Derek White who had 10 points in the fourth quarter today. He had 10 points in the fourth quarter on Friday night. And I believe that's because they want to spread the ball. They want everybody shooting threes. Joe Mazzulla will yell at Xavier Tillman if he doesn't shoot a three. So I think you bring up a really good point that their philosophy, their idea is if it's a good shot, I don't care who's shooting it. If it's Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, it doesn't matter. Shoot the open shots. And when your time comes, Sam Hauser, who had a good game on Friday night, you're going to hit those shots because you're going to be ready. It's their be ready offense, and it works.
And keep in mind also that it's 3-point, that Joe Mazzulla's philosophy is 3-point attempts, not makes, attempts. Tommy's point, 2-point attempts, not makes, attempts, because these are all professionals. And the expectation is that if you attempt more than your opponent, you're going to make more than your opponent. And if it doesn't work out that way, you'll be back on defense and maybe you'll stop your opponent more. That's the logical thinking through it, I think.
I'm really glad you brought up this 2-point attempt thing that Tommy said because we didn't even discuss it at all, before we started. But I saw Dick Lipe, once again, the Celtics statistician, put out that in the first half against the Timberwolves, they had their fewest 2-point field goal attempts since 2002, I believe he tweeted, which is just, it couldn't go more to your point that the NBA has changed. It's still, a field goal attempt that's the most important thing, but that field goal attempt has changed to beyond the arc because the math. It's all about the math. Love it or hate it, it's about math.
Well, it's math in the regular season, Scaz. And I'm fine with math in the regular season. But the math has to be adjusted when it comes to the postseason because you can't. I remember somebody from the Celtics saying this to me. Doug McDermott, Dougie McBuckets, right?
Dougie Buckets.
A pretty good, he can be a sixth or seventh man in the regular season. In the playoffs, you can't really play him because teams will just attack him. And he's a defensive liability. So that's where you have to balance out this math equation. That's why, Sam Hauser putting in serviceable defensive minutes last year in the playoffs helped in a big way. And I'm saying serviceable just to be polite. It wasn't offensive when he was on the floor last year in the playoffs. And they'd go at him too.
And I think even more to that point is we talk about you say it's the 3-pointers in the regular season, the game changes in the postseason. To that point, I would say Joe Mazzulla talked about it on Friday after the game, and it happened again tonight. Late in that game, they give the ball to Jason Tatum. I don't want to say in the post. He's a little bit lower than the post, but almost right on that, elbow. Sometimes he's a little lower than the elbow. He's right in that
He's
area.
on the box. He's on the box.
He's on the box. He's right in there. He gets the ball, and Mazzulla said, "Look, it's not how we run our offense always, but late in the game, if I can get him or Jaylen in that situation where they're closer to the basket, one-on-one against a guy, that's a situation we really like." So, crunch time, late playoffs, it's a different game. Their philosophy for Mazzulla ball and shooting threes isn't. Nothing is consistent, and they know that. So they're going to have to tweak things. Tatum was 0 for 10 from 3 on Friday night. So what do they do late in the game? He's still their best player. The math is still going to tell you go to your best player, put him in a more advantageous situation. That's what they believe they did, and it worked. And you saw it again late in the game against Minnesota today. So I just think it's the Celtics coaching staff. They deserve credit. I know we're going to talk about Mazzulla getting his technical the other night too when the team looked sluggish, and I think that once again just goes to, does him getting a technical win them the game? No, but it sends a message to his guys and it changes the complexion of the game.
Keep going with your Mazzulla points here, and we'll get to the Cavs stuff and we'll get to the conference stuff in a second. But keep rolling on Mazzulla and the technical point that you want to bring up.
Yeah, so the technical thing is, and he almost kind of, I don't want to say bragged, but he was like, yeah, you're like, that's what I was trying to do post game. I was trying to change something up, trying to give the guys some juice. And he was like, did it work? I mean, I think it did work. They were dead. It was a Friday night in Washington. They didn't want to be there. They were at the White House the day before. I'm sure they, went out to dinner, all that stuff. But That's the difference. We say it time and time again. They're the best team in the league because they win games like this, because Jason Tatum can go 0 for 10 from 3, and Sam Hauser will chip in 13 points, and you'll get 19 from Derek White again, and Jaylen Brown will rack up points. Like, was it a pretty game? No, but it's a game they lose in the past, and they win it this year because of coaching, because of philosophy, because Missoula. You know, I think people have, really turned the corner on him now, but there's still a few small question marks. But that's knowing your guys, that's knowing your team. That's something that, might not be quantifiable in the box score. Get a technical, fire the guys up, and he did exactly that.
And I think that's what coaching has become more of these days, is connecting with players and getting them to buy into whatever the system that they're preaching is. I've talked about basketball ecosystems and how the landscape is changing. And as long as you do everything the right way, the skill level of players is so great. It's really on the margins, and it's really those players who understand how to play the game, that, not to do the old Motorhead song, but or the Triple H song, same thing. Sorry, I just warped into my wrestling mind for a second. Hang on, let me get out of it. Out. But it's making sure that your players and your coach and your ecosystem, they all align together. And if they don't, there's a problem. And I preached about Kenny Atkinson, and we'll talk about the Cavs in a second. But the Missoula ecosystem works. It's working right now. They're successful right now. Now, that's not to say that in 2 years it falls apart. Larry Bird had this thing about, like, I only want to do the coaching thing for 3 years, because that was when I started to tune out my coach. Brad Stevens, they started to tune out in year 6, year 7, somewhere around there. And it really, like, oh, I almost did a really bad pun there, but it really seemed to blow up in the bubble. And that's when you're like, Brad's probably done. And he was probably an extra year. And then they changed course and they moved Brad up to the front office, and they fired Danny Ainge, which he was fired. I know that there's dispute about that, but he was fired. Because if he was retired, he wouldn't hold a high ranking position with the Utah Jazz right now. And he would have gotten that position 6-8 months later. But I digress. And it's Austin and Zarins, and they're the ones who really, I mean, I think Mike Zarin and Austin Ainge are the 2 highest paid non-GMs in basketball. So I think. And if it's wrong, it's wrong, and somebody will yell at me. But don't call my boss. Call me instead if I'm wrong. I don't want to get in trouble. Cavs. This was good game. Good game,
Very
Scaz.
good game.
Was not in doubt to me, even though the Celtics blew a 21-point lead. The Celtics scored 19 of the last 26. The question is, are the Cavaliers a fake contender? I say no. They've got star players. They've got a good ecosystem. If they take the Celtics to 6 or 7 games in the postseason, I would say that's realistic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was impressed by the Cavs. They were missing a few pieces. Celtics obviously missing Porzingis. Darius Garland, I think that was one of the big storylines after the game. Just an abysmal shooting performance from Darius Garland, and you got Cavs fans saying that, oh, that won't happen again. We hung with them the whole night, and you get Celtics fans saying, well, you have to give the Celtics some credit, almost to your Green Tamer Anthony Edwards narrative earlier, where the Celtics locked him up, had him confused out there. I think it goes both ways with Darius Garland. He's a good player. He's struggled. He's had great games against the Celtics in the past. He struggled against the Celtics in the past. Derek White and Drew Holiday are a tough matchup for any guard. Darius Garland is a guy that likes to shoot first, too, and Derek White knows that. I thought they played a really good defensive game on the Cavs. And like you said, I didn't think the game was ever in question. I know people like to say, I think they led by 19 at one point today, a 2 to the Timberwolves. So a 21-point lead, a 19-point lead. Guess what? They didn't blow either of those leads. They have the fewest blown leads in the NBA over the last 2 years. Those are just stats. they have so many leads. So when teams do actually fight back and don't lie down like most of the NBA, you think of them more. But in reality, the Celtics hold on to leads. They're very good at it. And I thought the one concern coming out of the Cavs game was, Mobley and Allen. They're bigs. They destroyed the Celtics, and it's been a problem. Missoula talked about Keita in that game, and he basically said, "Look, he's not great, but if you guys ever want him to get better, he has to play these minutes. He's not going to get better sitting on the bench against Mobley and Allen. Like, these are two legit bigs. I thought Mobley was tremendous in that game. And Keita, did he have big screw ups and look totally lost at times? Yes, but I agree with Missoula that this is a guy that, because of Horford's age, and Tillman has been kind of a bust. We saw a little bit of Xavier Tillman for the first time in like a week and a half over the weekend, but they're going to need Keita, and Missoula knows it. The team knows it, so they're going to live with his lumps. He got eaten alive at times, but I agree with the philosophy that he needs to be out there and learn.
You're right, Scaz. You're right. The other factor here is when we get to the playoffs, they're going to have Porzingis. We think they're going to have Porzingis.
That's the hope.
That changes the dynamic a bit. Porzingis doesn't help as much on the inside, like for those really tough rebounds. But what it does is it gives them length to defend more of the paint around the rim. Like, you could get Porzingis out there in a switch on Mitchell or Garland, and it's respectable, and he's got the length to be able to contest, if not block the shot. So that's the other factor, is Porzingis is presumably going to be healthy when the games matter most, and that's in April, May, and hopefully June. I'll tell you the thing that stood out to me from this Cavs game, and why I believe that the Cavs are a real contender. When they were on their 22-5 run, it felt like they had a bunch of quick reads and there were adjustments on the Celtics defense, right? Like they kind of knew what they were doing. But for the most part of that game, I felt like the Celtics ran the Cavs off the 3-point line and into more mid-range shots. And coincidentally enough, Scaz, Scott Zolak of the Zolak and Bertrand show asked Joe Mazzulla about this. Imagine that. Like, I had an observation and Zolak knew to ask it. And Joe turned the answer into mentioning how good the Cavs are at cutting to open up more space and gaps. And the Celtics off-ball defense can adjust because they're smart enough to. So I interpreted that answer as, yes, Jay Stu, you were right in your assumption. And it made the Cavs have guys dribble and go to the next read. So I think we got something here. I think we got a good competitive series with the Cavs coming up. But yeah, imagine Jay Stu has an instinct. Zolak knows to ask Joe Mazzulla a certain question. Funny how that works.
Look at that. Almost like he was fed.
I don't know. I know Zolak is a very intelligent person. I know he can understand film, and I know he can do great things when he's watching a basketball game. So that is good on Zolak. Thanks.
Can I give you another takeaway from the Cavs game?
Please do.
I thought Jaylen Brown in that game, 17, 3, and 8, but that 8 was huge. He's not a guy that usually racks up a ton of assists, and on a night when he's not getting his shot to fall, only 17 points, which is low for him, he was able to find a way to get other guys involved. I think Jaylen Brown's faced a lot of criticism for, not racking up assists over the past, 3-4 a year, average usually. So for him to go out there in a game that, I know it's a regular season game in November, but that one had some juice to it. I thought Jaylen really adapted well to what the Cavs were doing, and for him to have 8 assists was huge. And then obviously Tatum, 6 of 10 from beyond the arc, 33, 12 and 7, ho-hum MVP game. So just that's what the Celtics are right now. And, Horford another 20 in that game, and Derek White another 19. It's just rested Al Horford can do this team wonders. And I think the more rest he can get, tomorrow night, keep him rested. It's long-term with Porzingis injury history. They need Horford as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
I agree. You got me all choked up with that, but that's week 4 of pneumonia for me. So
I know.
Last thing before I start hacking away on this podcast, and we don't need to hear that. Last thing on my notes and agenda. Maybe you have something else, Scaz, that you want to get to. But according to ESPN's Brian Windhorst, executives believe that the league is moving towards eliminating the standard East and Western Conference divisions. Quote, as West coaches and executives grow exasperated looking at what records might qualify for the postseason in the East, they're floating a concept. The NBA is slowly moving towards expansion, perhaps 2 to 3 years from now, with Seattle and Vegas as top candidates. That's LeBron's team, Vegas. Fenway Sports Group will own that. If that happens, there will potentially be a battle between the Mississippi River teams, the Wolves, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans to be the fortunate one to move to the East to balance out the conferences at 16 apiece. Instead of dealing with that thorny competition, West executives told ESPN they believe both issues can be corrected by dropping conferences altogether and seeding teams 1 through 16, regardless of geography. Scaz, I love this idea.
I hate it.
Excellent. This is perfect for us. I love it for this reason. I always want to see the best teams in the tournament. I want to always see the best teams playing for a championship. And in baseball, I kind of hate it when an 83 win team wins the World Series. In basketball, I hate not seeing LeBron in the playoffs. I hate, like, if he's got a winning record. I hate, like, there are just certain things that I just hate. So if you've got 10 teams in the West and they all have winning records, and I know there's the play-in, expansion playoffs, all that stuff, and you've got 4 teams that are under 500 in the East, I hate that. I despise that. So that's my first thing. My second is, this is going to massively impact the schedule. And you can do the schedule now in the NBA. I sent you this little web thing about how the math of the schedule is done. It's a popsicle headache.
Yes, that was going to be my first take. Was I took a look at it, and it was. I'm glad that's not my job.
I am too, although I'm sure that if they compensate me well enough, I will be happy to make it my job. But I would be more interested if they did it similar to the NFL, where it's the Celtics are the top team in the East, the quote unquote East, and the Nuggets are the top team in the West, the quote unquote West, and they play each other 3 times a year instead of 2. And then you go down based on record. So if they go to this 1 through 16 seeding, 1 and 2 play 3 times, 1 and 3 play 3 times, 1 and 4 play 3 times, so on, so on, so on. So you're getting more marquee matchups based on win-loss record, so that I don't have to see them play the stupid Bobcats, 5 times, 4 times, whatever it is. I can actually see, like, based on the previous year's record, I can see a rematch of the NBA Finals 3 times a year instead of 2. I can see LeBron 2 times at the Garden instead of 1. Like, there's just more possibilities for better matchups, better play. I love this idea. Tell me why you hate it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of, the conferences, the standings, the 1 through 8, that fighting for at the end of the, trying to figure out your matchups, teams winning games, resting guys, teams playing guys. I like seeing that. I get your argument, because you look at, baseball this year with the Guardians and the Tigers. They got to play the White Sox, 100 times. They get into the playoffs. They get, destroyed in both series. So I get it from that argument, but for me, it's just, is it really because some Western Conference teams don't want to face the gauntlet of the East? Like, that just seems too much of a cop out. I want to like some more reasoning behind it, because I want Celtics Knicks. I want Celtics 76 or Celtics Heat. Like, there's history there. Those battles, these teams play each other a lot. The Spoelstra thing, going to the Garden. Like, maybe it's because the Celtics have so much history. Like if you're a Pelicans fan or a Sacramento Kings fan or something like that, Trailblazers, your team has just stunk in recent years. Like maybe you don't care at all. We want to play everybody. We want to see Jason Tatum come in here a couple times a year. I get it from that perspective, but the West with the Lakers, the East with the Celtics, the Knicks, it's just you have the Nuggets out in the West now. Then to just throw them all in this huge thing, like I think it gets very convoluted, the playoff picture. Like, I kind of like that we only get Jokic a couple times a year, and there's like this colossus in the West that we've been dying to see the Celtics play in the title. And you have to earn it. You have to get there if you want to. If you want Celtics Nuggets, Jokic, this Jokic team is better than the Celtics. With Tatum, we haven't seen it yet because Jokic didn't get there when the Celtics. He won his title and then fell off. Now the Celtics are trying to win their title and get back there. So I like the narratives, the storylines. I get it. I just wonder, I'm always look at these things with kind of a side eye. Where's the money in this? What is the NBA trying to do to make more money? There's
Bingo.
something here. I don't know their angle yet. I'll start sniffing around. I'll have to ask Joe Murray, but I'm sure there's something here where there's another play-in game we get now because now we need 3 play-in games because it's one big conference or, one. And I also don't want 16 teams getting in the playoffs. That's enough for me. Let's not.
So I agree with this.
We get 2 more teams in the league. Does that mean 2 more teams are getting in the playoffs? Like I don't want that. So with the plans, I guess it's fine now. You have basically 10 teams getting in, whatever it is after all said and done. So. I'm worried about how convoluted the NBA is going to get. I think they have a great product. I don't love the NBA Cup. I'm not the biggest fan of the play-in games, but it gives you incredible theater. So the whole blowing up the conferences thing, I need to see where's the money? What is the reasoning behind this? That's what I want to know.
It's interesting because I would have blown up the divisions. I wouldn't have blown up the conferences.
So I think I could get behind that more than I could get, behind just blowing up the whole thing.
But if you look at baseball, if you look at how baseball did it, I actually talking to the microphone, James. Me, James, not you, James. Two James. My fault. If you look at what baseball did, baseball took the Houston Astros and they moved them. They actually gave them an advantage because they were playing for years without the DH. Then they moved them to the American League, and now they have the DH. In basketball, the advantage would be for the Western Conference team to move to the East, right? And instead of, the best you could do is do a coin flip, but, the NBA, knowing them, they would rig it because they're an entertainment company, and that's what they like to do. So that might be the compromise is it's now 1 through 16 instead of, in divisions. But I think the other thing too, Scaz, is the NBA Cup, right? It has a money stakes on the line. If the NBA decided, if you win the cup, no matter what, you're one of the 16 teams in the playoffs, would you be on board with it more?
But then does that team just tank the rest of the year? Like what are they guaranteed the 16th spot? Is it their record and they get a little like a bye or that's what I want to know. It has to come with some caveat, I'd imagine.
It has to come with the promise that you're not just going to mail it in because you're an 8 seed or 16 seed or whatever. That's
exactly.
Fair. That's fair.
Because then you have Kawhi. You have Kawhi come out and play for 3 weeks, win the NBA Cup, and then he goes, back into the IR for the next 3 months, which would be my fear.
Yeah, that is fair. I don't love the NBA Cup. I appreciate the fact that that they're trying to make regular season games feel more important, and there's a whole bunch of money involved with it between sponsorships and new merchandise and courts, and they're just trying. They're trying things because the NBA season can be long unless you're nerdy about it like we are. So I get it. It doesn't have as many TMZ level headlines as it should, but that's because it's 82 of them plus whatever in the playoffs as opposed to football. It's 18 plus playoffs, and it's 1 4-hour block on Sunday as opposed to the Celtics, not this week, but next week. I think they play Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. They play 5 out of 7 days. And the quality of competition is suspect, to quote Joe Murray.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of good points, and
I
if we don't
usually
have
do.
well, naturally, that's why we're here. That's why everybody's here. But you don't get the 15-0 Cavs coming to Boston to take on the defending champs in the East. Like you miss out. It would be the 15-0 Cavs come to take on the defending champ Celtics, but there's no that Eastern Conference thing gunning for the one seed. It would just be the NBA overall one seed. So I guess it's a different beast. But I like those. You'd had Cleveland and LeBron in here going back years, and just you build these rivalries, these storylines. So I'm out on blowing up the conferences for now.
Do you think it's because they tried to do? Do you think it's because they tried to do rivalries, and where you'd play the same team 5 times every year, and it just didn't work out the way that they wanted to?
Yeah, I think that got like too stale. It felt too
Yeah.
forced. Like baseball has gone back and forth with this, with like how many times you play teams in the American League. Like you'd play the Yankees a ton, and they didn't play them as much. Now they're playing them. So I think there is something to finding the right balance. But I kind of like what the NBA has going. Home and away, you get a couple random other ones thrown in there. I like the NBA schedule for what it is. You get when the premier games are, Christmas, like the way it's. Maybe it's just because we are green teamers, we're NBA honks, but I'm a big fan of the way the NBA regular season is set up. At least
I was going to quote you something from 2015 from Chris Broussard about how executives feel, but I don't trust Chris Broussard on this stuff, so I'm not going to. Scaz, any final thoughts?
no, they have the Clippers tomorrow, the Bulls Friday, like you said, and I think it's the Cavaliers on Sunday again. So I would say maybe one good game this week. Maybe the Clippers give you a good game, but you mentioned they're on a back-to-back. That's a team that's, we all know, banged up all the time. So take care of business. Monday and Friday, light week for the Celtics. Rest Al Horford, and hopefully Sunday we get a good one again against the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to that Cavs matchup. No final thoughts from me. Everybody
Have
have
a
a
good
wonderful
Thanksgiving, Jay
Thanksgiving.
Stu. Yeah, I
Yep.
was just about to say, have a good Thanksgiving.
Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it's all about sitting, eating, enjoying the family, and whatever that means. That means no fighting. That means don't be that person at Thanksgiving. Because if you're ever that person at my Thanksgiving table, I will shove a turkey leg down your throat. And don't think that I won't. Scaz, we'll talk next week. Okay, brother?
Sounds good, Jay Stu. Enjoy.
All right. Everybody have a good week of Celtics green teaming.